My thank you video for having reached the 80,000 subscriber milestone is long overdue. I have had a series of videos devoted to subtle water features of Calgary, and I have been trying for months to get a good one filmed. But the trouble with these hidden water features is they're often so hidden that I can't get certain information about them that doesn't turn out to be false later on, or I simply can't get footage. So I returned to an easier place to film, just across the river from where I filmed my 70,000 thank you subscriber video, and thought I'd compose a birthday message as well, because I get a lot of requests to do something that can be used as a birthday greeting. So, in an attempt to combine these two things, the unusual water features and the birthday greeting, I thought I would do a little bit of an expansion pack for the use of the beaver as a symbol for certain human characteristics that are lumped together to form a character. This is the time of year when, according to one reckoning, we have the beginning of the astrological sign of Taurus, the bull. And in the pre-Columbian part of the world where I now live, the people there before the Europeans used to see beavers as little people, symbolic people. And they looked at them much in a similar way, ascribing human characteristics to them. When the Greek system came around, the beaver was assigned to the sign of Taurus, saying these are essentially the same type of animal. And if you just want to use what we now call North American animal for this originally European scheme, you can just use the beaver instead. Similar to the way in Australia, the wombat was assigned as someone to occupy the place of the bull. In both places, there's a little bit of difficulty in assigning these different animals, because if you aren't at the same latitude as ancient Greece, the stars are going to look a little different. And if you're in the southern hemisphere, they will be reversed in terms of their seasonality from the way we look at them based on the European system. So basing a character portrait on one of these animals by just saying, well, just substitute the word beaver or wombat for the word bull, I think is doing a disservice to the New World animals and to the people who are basing a characterization upon those animals, because they do have some features that are not simply cut and paste and are the same as the bull features. Beavers are known distinctly from bulls for being engineers symbolically and construction workers, and for the almost human extent to which they alter the landscape. But in Calgary, beavers have also become a form of fascination for people who are looking for an animal to identify with, because in the area of Calgary where I filmed my last video, there are post-industrial beavers. They live in places where people have altered the flow of the river dramatically already. So to some extent the beavers don't have to, or there's too much water flowing and the beavers can't dam it. So this gives new roles potentially for beavers to fill. In anatomical terms, always I think they could have symbolized something a bull doesn't, because they always grow their teeth back. Symbolically, a beaver would be the dream dentist. If you went to visit the beaver dentist, the beaver would have some means of making your teeth grow back, and you'd leave the dentist's office with more tooth than you started with instead of less, if that was what you needed. There is a carryover in that the bull professions that I looked up, people who are supposed to be born under the sign of Taurus, are assigned jobs that are similar to those that a beaver would be assigned, such as florists, chefs, flavor and perfume designers, and people who have an eye for beauty. But the beaver is not the same as the bull in having an eye for beauty, because they have a body for beauty. They produce it. automatically rather than observing and copying, recreating it. So that's a subtle difference in the way a beaver-based personality would approach life. They also, in this post-industrial part of Calgary where people come to watch the beavers in their altered urban and yet still wild state, seem to have developed a potential for performance and social science. Either they're there because they like being watched and having people update their lives and see how they're changing from day to day, or they are there to observe the antics of humans and try to understand them. There are certainly things done to the river that would puzzle a beaver. Originally, there was a concrete weir across the river, which was about the same height as many beaver dams, and would allow the water of the river to flow right over it, and would raise the level of the water sufficiently to divert much of the river into the headworks of the irrigation system. But this created a large turbulence downstream from the weir, which is very strong and came to be designated locally as the drowning machine, because someone who went over the weir and capsized or became caught in that part of it would not be able to escape. The water would just keep looping around and around and around. So this led to a second strange construction from the point of view of a beaver. The first is that you wouldn't build your house, in your beaver house, on the water and then divert the river through it, which would appear to have been done from the beaver's point of view with the headworks. Second, you wouldn't build this ideal dam that doesn't erode no matter how much water washes over it and then punch holes in the dam. And that's what's been done in recent years. The drowning machine apparently was deemed too dangerous. Recreational demands were increased, and so there was a diversion made around the south side of the river as well, which had artificial drops and rapids in it, so people could have a variable degree of difficulty to choose from for paddling and canoeing. And the main weir had holes punched in it to eliminate the drop and the turbulence, which came to be called the drowning machine. So now people can choose any level of difficulty they want in going through or around the former weir. But to a beaver, this must seem utterly baffling. And so beavers then are now symbolically not merely construction and engineering people, but also people who try to understand why people do what they do. They also have a gland. Beavers are inherently flavor and perfume producing because they have a gland in the rear underneath the tail, which produces an oil called castoreum, which a long time ago used to be used for making flavors, anything needed to produce vanilla, raspberry, or strawberry, and was used in gum and ice cream and similar things. So there's also a tendency more recently to use it as perfume, which makes the production of these things an inherent part of the beaver, of its biology and its physiology, which the bull does not have. And there's a difficulty then in simply saying you can cross out the word bull and put in the word beaver, because it doesn't survive the sniff test. Although I haven't done it personally, I don't believe it's the same thing to lift up a bull's tail and smell underneath it and to lift up a beaver's tail and smell underneath it. There is a substantial difference between the two.